While I was wrestling with a pile of laundry, my phone buzzed with a text. "Hey sweetie, heads up, Christmas is gonna be low-key this year. Cash is tight, so no fancy gifts, just the basics," it read. I stood there, glaring at the screen, my hands squeezing the shirt I'd been folding. It didn't shock me. Really, Mom and Dad always kept Christmas sensible, never going wild with spending. But this time, something about that message rubbed me wrong. Not just the cutbacks, but how final it sounded, like they'd already locked in the plan without a word to me. Still, I slapped on a grin and shot back, no sweat, totally get it. The kids won't mind, because what else was I gonna say? Me and my wife, we're not exactly rolling in dough either, but we always pull out the stops to make Christmas sparkle for our twins, Zoe and Oliver. All year long, we stash away pennies, hunt down perfect little presents, and wrap 'em up nice. It's not over the top, but it feels like magic to us. So I choked down the letdown and let it slide. Family's about being together, not about stuff, right? That's what I kept telling myself, what I clung to, until those damn photos hit my screen. It was a couple days after Christmas, a slow, easy afternoon. The twins were messing around with their new toys, my wife's man was elbow-deep fixing a drip of faucet, and I was just killing time, thumbing through social media. Then bam, there it was, best Christmas ever. My sister's caption screamed over a slideshow of pictures. First up was my folks' living room, but it looked like a holiday showroom, a giant tree dripping with white lights, loaded with fancy gold and red baubles. Underneath, a heap of presents spilled across the floor, all decked out in slick silver and gold wrapping. My nieces, my sister's girls, were smack in the middle, ripping into big-ticket stuff, name-brand kicks, flashy gadgets, and what sure as hell looked like a shiny new tablet in my youngest niece's grip. I went stiff, my pulse hammering in my chest. Nobody had bothered to invite us. Not a peep about some big family Christmas bash. Our Christmas? It was just me, my wife, and the twins, keeping it chill at home, simple grub, a handful of small gifts, and us piled on the couch with holiday flicks. No grandparents, no cousins, no party, 'cause it turns out we didn't make the cut this year. I flicked through those photos again, praying I'd got it twisted. Maybe these were old shots, a recycled post or something. But nope, the date stamped on M was crystal clear. This was this Christmas. I dug into my messages. Zip from Mom. Nada from Dad. No heads up, no invite. My throat tightened. Did they even spare a thought for Zoe and Oliver while my nieces tore into gifts worth hundreds, maybe thousands? Did we even cross their minds? My stomach churned. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe there was a good reason, some mix-up. Maybe. But in my gut, I already knew what was up. They'd fed me a line. Not just about the cash, not just about skipping gifts. They'd lied about where we stood with them. I didn't have any beef with my nieces. They're just little kids, you know? And my sister? Nah, I wasn't mad at her either. I'd made peace ages ago with her being the golden child in my parents' eyes. But Mom and Dad, the folks who brought me up, who drilled into me that Christmas was about family, not flashy presents, they'd gone and cut us out of something that should have included everybody. The real kicker? They let my kids, Zoe and Oliver, think Christmas had to be this quiet, bare-bones thing, 'cause that's all there was, while over at my sister's place, her girls got the full-blown, decked-out holiday treatment. I just stood there, eyes glued to my phone for what felt like forever. Then, without even thinking twice, I scrolled to my contacts. I blocked their numbers, not out of spite or some petty tantrum, but 'cause sometimes the ones who are supposed to have your back are the ones who twist the knife deepest. This year, I decided my Christmas present to myself was gonna be some damn peace of mind. You'd think blocking M would have tied a bow on it, but nope, it felt more like ripping off a Band-Aid and finding a raw mess underneath. The days after Christmas just blurred together. I kept busy, whipping up meals, scrubbing dishes, goofing off with Zoe and Oliver. But inside, I was running on empty. This heavy ache parked itself right in my chest, like a rock I couldn't cough up. My wife, Thomas, picked up on it. One night, as we were tucking the twins in, she gave me that look and asked, "You holding up okay?" Her tone was soft, cautious, like she already knew the answer. I froze for a sec. Yeah, just wiped out, I mumbled, brushing a kiss on Zoe's forehead before flipping off the light. Total lie, but she didn't press me. Still, I caught her watching me later, those little worried creases in her brow when she saw me zoning out. How do you even say it out loud? My own folks don't give a damn about me. How do you cop to the fact that you weren't just overlooked, you were tossed aside like yesterday's trash? I figured they'd at least reach out, you know? But days went by, and it was dead quiet. At first, I was sure Mom would call with some half-baked excuse, something to smooth it over. Nada. Zilch. Then my sister's name lit up my phone. I let it ring out. It buzzed again, then again, until a text finally popped up. Saw you blocked Mom and Dad. What's your problem? Not a shred of, sorry, no, let's hash this out. Not even a hint she felt bad, just straight up blame thrown my way. I stared at that message, my heart thumping loud in my ears. What's my problem? Thomas walked in and found me perched on the edge of our bed, clutching my phone so hard I thought it might crack. They didn't even try to play it off, I muttered, barely getting the words out. He plopped down next to me. They knew exactly what they were doing, Sophie, and they don't give a rip that it's tearing you up. I let out a shaky breath. I keep telling myself maybe I got it wrong, maybe there's some reason behind it. Thomas shook his head, firm. Quit it. Stop covering for M. They picked their side. I swallowed hard, that prickly sting of tears creeping up again. He was dead right. They'd gone with my sister, her kids, fed me a load of crap, let my twins think Christmas was supposed to be this small, quiet thing while they were whooping it up somewhere else with a tree buried in gifts and big laughs. That wasn't a slip up. That was on purpose. That was them choosing. The next morning, I finally fired back at my sister's text. Mom and Dad said they were too broke to get gifts for my kids this year, but somehow they scraped together enough for a blowout party at your place, fancy presents, decked out decorations, the works. Couldn't even toss us an invite though. You want to break that down for me? Her reply pinged back fast as hell. Chill out, Sophie. It's not a huge deal. They just wanted to spoil the girls a little. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Overreacting. That word hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't some upsie, and it sure wasn't just about Christmas anymore. It was how they viewed me, second rate, a footnote, the kid who didn't stack up. For the first time ever, I quit kidding myself about it. I sat there, eyeballing her message for a good long while before hammering out my last word on it. Glad your girls had an awesome Christmas. Mine got stuck with small and simple, 'cause that's what Mom and Dad swore was all they could manage. Now I see my spot in this family clear as day. Do me a solid, lose my number. I smashed send, wiped the whole chat, and blocked her too, not 'cause I was raging or out for payback, but 'cause I was over it. Done scrambling for crumbs of affection. Done acting like I was worth something to them. Done hoping they'd ever treat me like I belonged when they'd flat out shown me I didn't. I set my phone down, let out a big OL breath, and for the first time since Christmas, I felt a little lighter. Their rejection still hung there like a dark cloud, but I wasn't clutching it anymore. For once, my phone stayed quiet, no texts from my folks, no snarky jabs from my sister, no fake apology calls trying to gloss over the mess without owning up to it. Just dead air. It should have felt like a win, but in the days after, I kept catching myself grabbing my phone out of reflex. Some dumb part of me was still waiting for Mom to show up at the door going, honey, this is all a big mix-up. I wanted Dad to step up and say, we didn't mean to screw you over. But nah, that didn't happen, 'cause the hard truth was, they did exactly what they'd planned, and they weren't losing sleep over it. The rumor mill didn't surprise me one bit. It kicked off small. A buddy we both know dropped a casual, hey, your sister's been griping about you. Then another pal texted, you good with your fam? Your mom's acting all torn up. Upset? She was upset? She'd axed me out of Christmas, showered my sister's kids with everything while letting mine think there was nothing to go around, and now she's the one crying about it? I left those messages on read. But then Thomas rolled in from work one night, his jaw tight. Your dad called me, he said. I went rigid. Yeah? What did he want? Says he's worried about you, that you're being all crazy cutting off the family. I let out a dry, bitter chuckle. I'm the crazy one? Not the folks who fed me lies and left my kids out in the cold? Thomas shook his head. I told him you're sick of being treated like you're invisible, and you know what he came back with? I crossed my arms, steeling myself. You don't ditch family no matter what. A slow, hot anger started simmering in my chest. No matter what? I echoed. Even when they lie through their teeth. Play favorites? Stab you in the back? Thomas gave a grim nod. Same old song and dance, expecting you to eat whatever crumbs they toss while your sister gets the whole damn cake. Here's my spin on your latest piece. Same meaning, flipped structure, new phrasing, a little extra juice, all told like I'm just some regular guy hashing it out. Let's jump in. Overreacting. That word slammed into me again. I gritted my teeth and plowed ahead. We figured you'd get it, money's been tight lately. We couldn't swing a big Christmas for everybody, so we did what we could manage. Your sister's been having a rough go too, you know, she needed a hand. Why you gotta make us the bad guys for that? I barked out a quick, sharp laugh. So that's their story. They had to pick and choose 'cause the budget wouldn't stretch. They could cough up cash for a high-roller Christmas for my nieces, but my kids got zilch. For years, I'd bent over backwards giving them the benefit of the doubt. Not this time. I folded their letter up nice and tight, then chucked it straight into the garbage. A few days later, 3, to be exact, my phone pinged with a text. It was my aunt, Mom's big sister. I sat there, thumb hovering, before I finally opened it. Hey Sophie, just got off a long chat with your mom. She's a wreck, been bawling her eyes out over this mess. She's clueless why you're coming down so hard. You know she's crazy about you, right? I rolled my eyes so hard I nearly saw my brain. There it was, the old-school guilt play. When they couldn't strong-arm me into line, they'd try piling on the shame till I caved. I didn't fire back right off. Instead, I just stared at those words, letting them settle heavy on me. Mom's crying now? Where were those waterworks when my twins were parked by our dinky tree, peeling open dollar store gifts, thinking Grandma and Grandpa were tapped out? Where was that sawfest when my sister's girls were strutting around with fancy kicks and shiny new tech? Where was her big breakdown when I had to find out from some damn Instagram posts that my own parents threw a Christmas party without us? Nah, they weren't tearing up over me. They were boo-hooing, 'cause I wasn't their good little puppet anymore, 'cause I finally quit choking down my hurt just to keep things smooth. I sucked in a deep breath and tapped out my answer. She's not torn up, 'cause she stabbed me in the back. She's crying 'cause I quit letting her walk all over me. If you can't wrap your head around that, maybe quit playing her errand girl. I hit send and figured that'd shut it down. Nope, I was dead wrong. The last swing came from some old buddy of Mom's, hadn't talked to her in forever. A Facebook message popped up. Sophie, just reaching out. Your mom's falling apart. She's got no idea how it got this bad with you. She asked me to tell you she loves you. Says she's crushed over all this. I get you're mad, but can't you just hash it out with her? Life's too short to hold on to bad blood like this. I glared at that screen, fingers dangling over the keys. They still didn't see it. This wasn't me being petty or nursing some grudge. This was me drawing a line, done running after folks who'd made it crystal clear I wasn't on their radar. But they wouldn't own up to a damn thing. No, sorry, no stepping up, just more sneaky guilt trips. This time, I kept it short and sweet. If she's crushed, it's only 'cause she finally got a taste of how she's been treating me. That night, Thomas caught me sprawled on the couch, my phone flipped upside down next to me. More messages? He asked, already knowing the drill. I nodded. More sob stories to reel me back in? You bet. He dropped down beside me, giving me that steady look of his. You holding up? I chewed on that for a sec and then, kinda shocked myself, I realized I was. 'Cause for once, I wasn't sitting around waiting for Mom and Dad to give a damn. I wasn't itching for their thumbs up. I wasn't clinging to some dream they'd ever care about me the way I'd always cared about them. I was finished and man, that felt like I'd busted out of a cage. Thomas grabbed my hand, gave it a solid squeeze. Good, he said, simple as that. And right then, I knew. This was what real love actually felt like. 2 months rolled by, 2 whole months with no peep from my folks, my sister, or any of their guilt-slinging messengers. 2 months of quiet, just me, Thomas, and the kids sharing meals, cracking up around the dinner table, and soaking up weekends making memories without that old family baggage dragging me down. At first, it threw me off, like I'd lost something I couldn't name. But then it hit me. What I was feeling wasn't emptiness. It was like a weight had finally lifted off my chest. Just when I figured I'd fully walked away from the family that had tossed me aside, something came along that made me rethink what family even means. It was late February when my phone lit up with a text from Aunt Carol, Dad's little sister. I sat there, finger hovering, before I clicked it open. Carol's always been a different breed from the rest of them. She never got sucked into the drama or played along with my parents' nonsense. She's been nothing but decent, though we've never been tight. Her message was short and sweet. Hey Sophie, I know it's been a mess with your folks. Just want you to know I see you, and if you and the kiddos ever want to swing by for dinner, I'm always here. I stared at those words, my chest tightening up. No heavy-handed guilt, no sneaky push to patch things up, just a straight-up invite, no strings attached. I mulled it over for a while before tapping back. That sounds real good. And for the first time in forever, I felt this little spark, hope, maybe. The next weekend, me and Thomas loaded Zoe and Oliver into the car and headed to Carol's place. It wasn't some big, fancy house like my parents', but it had this cozy vibe, warm air thick with the smell of good cooking, echoes of laughter bouncing around. Carol flung the door open, her whole face lighting up. You guys made it. She crouched down, grinning at the twins. Bet you're chilly out there, come on in. I whipped up some hot chocolate. The kids took to her like she was their new best buddy. While they got comfy with their mugs, Carol tugged me into the kitchen. I'm not gonna drag it all up, she said, her voice soft but steady, but I need you to know I don't back what they pulled on you. My eyes started stinging with tears. They act like they didn't even mess up. Carol let out a tired sigh. Yeah, that's them, never wrong, expecting everybody to bend over backwards and let it slide, no questions asked. I nodded, throat tight. It's not just me they screwed over, it's my kids too. Her gaze went gentle. Exactly. That's why you're doing right by stepping away, shielding Zoe and Oliver from folks who only care when it suits them. That's the smartest call you could have made. I sucked in a wobbly breath. So why's it still eating at me? 'Cause you've got a big heart, Sophie. Decent folks like you always hope people will come around. But sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is see they ain't changing and quit holding your breath for it. Here's my take on your final piece, same heart. Reshuffled structure, new words, a touch more depth, all in that laid-back, first-person style of a regular guy wrapping it up. Let's dive in. I took in Carol's snug little kitchen, the way she'd thrown her arms wide open to my crew, and it dawned on me, maybe I hadn't lost family after all. Maybe I'd just stumbled onto the ones who actually earned the title. That night was everything I'd ever dreamed of having with my own folks. Carol's husband was sprawled out on the floor with Zoe and Oliver, cracking up as they invented wild new rules for their board game. Dinner flowed smooth and natural, chatter bouncing around without that stiff, awkward edge. For the first time in forever, I didn't feel like I had to audition for my spot. Carol didn't treat me like the spare kid, stuck scraping by on whatever attention was left in the tank. She looked at me like I belonged, like real family, and acted like it too. Driving home that night, I peeked in the rear view at the twins, zonked out in the back seat. Thomas slid his hand over mine and gave it a squeeze. You good? He asked. I let a small smile slip out. Yeah, I reckon I am. 'Cause maybe family ain't about who's got your blood in their veins. Maybe it's about who shows up, who's got your back, no strings attached, who carves out a place for you without making you grovel for it. Spring snuck up fast, melting away the last of winter's chill. It brought something else too, a clear head. I stopped jolting awake, half expecting my phone to buzz with a call from Mom or Dad. I quit hovering over my messages, steeling myself for another guilt bomb or sneaky jab. I didn't give a damn anymore if they'd ever get why I bailed, 'cause I'd finally pieced it together for myself. The anger? Gone. The waiting for some big resolution? Over. I'd already handed it to myself. For months after Christmas, Mom found a way to sneak back in a letter this time. Thomas fished it out of the mailbox, dangling it like it might snap at him. "You want to crack it open?" he asked. I sucked in a breath, eyeballing her familiar scrawl on the envelope. Then, without a second thought, I tossed it in the trash. Thomas cocked an eyebrow. "That simple, huh?" I grinned, and it felt real. Yep, that simple. For years, I'd fed myself this line that family's locked in forever, that no matter how often my folks picked my sister over me, no matter how much I got shoved to the sidelines, I had to cling on, 'cause that's just how it works. But I'd finally seen it straight. Family ain't about genes. It's about the ones who make you feel warm, steady, and noticed. And my parents? They'd spent a lifetime showing me they didn't fit that bill. Easter weekend came around, and for once, I didn't feel that old tug to call up Mom and Dad. Instead, we piled over to Carol's place. The kids tore around her backyard, hunting Easter eggs like little maniacs, while me and Carol kicked back on the porch with coffee, watching Em go. "This is good," she said, "having family here." I smiled back. "Yeah, it sure is." She paused, then added soft like, "I know it ain't the same, Sophie. I bet some part of you still misses Em." I chewed on that. Did I? Or was it just the ghost of what I'd wished they'd be, not the folks they turned out as? I took a big breath, letting the warm air sweep off that heavy load I used to lug around. "Nah," I said, dead honest, I don't. And for the first time, I knew I meant it. That night, I did something I hadn't touched since Christmas. I flipped through old pics, Mom, Dad, my sister, that whole life I'd fought to hang on to, and then I started deleting Em, one by one. Not mad, not bitter, just 'cause I didn't need Em anymore. I wasn't stuck staring in the rear view. I wasn't second-guessing if I'd done right. I wasn't pouring love into folks who wouldn't toss it back. I set my phone down, let out a long breath, and shut my eyes. I'd let it all go. Here's my rework of your final bit. Same soul, new shape, fresh words, a little extra flavor, all in that down-to-earth, first-person vibe of a regular guy wrapping it up. Let's roll. The next morning, I was slapping together the kids' lunches when Zoe piped up out of nowhere. "Mommy, are we ever gonna see Grandma and Grandpa again?" I froze mid-peanut butter swipe, looking down at her sweet little face, so pure, so clueless about the baggage tied to that question. "I ain't sure, sweetheart," I told her, keeping it real. Oliver cocked his head like a curious pup. "Do you miss Em?" I let that sit for a sec. Did I? "Nah," I said, voice low. "I miss what I thought we were, but what we've got now. I'm crazy about that even more." Zoe gave a little nod, like she got it in that quiet, smart way kids sometimes do, and just like that, it felt settled. A year slipped by, months piling up quick, and in that stretch, I pieced together something way better than the family I'd left behind. I carved out a life brimming with real love, straight talk, and people who actually had my back. I started new rituals with the folks who showed up, no questions asked. And the big one? I quit holding my breath for affection from people who'd already made it loud and clear they weren't dishing it out. 'Cause the sweetest payback ain't about getting mad or stewing in hurt, it's about finding your own joy. And damn if I hadn't tracked it down at last.